Hello and welcome back to another episode of French Ear Trumpet, where myself, Andy, and Colin speak about stuff we just find interesting. It may be related to France, it may not, but whatever we talk about, we're just interested in it. We both have our own channels, AJ in France for me and French Countryside Life for Colin, obviously link in the description. So every now and again we have a discussion about stuff that interests us, and today we're going to talk about being prepared in France. I suppose you could relate it to other countries, but it's pretty specific to France, I think.
So before we start, should we just define what we mean by being prepared? It's a wide, it's a really wide definition, I'm guessing.
Yeah.
But you know, from being prepared with a packet of plasters and a pair of tweezers to get the splinter out your finger, to, you know, the event of a nuclear strike.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it does cover the whole gamut of scenarios.
Anything really. Yeah, I mean, what are you likely to or unlikely to experience?
Hopefully not the latter.
Yeah. Oh, but you did recommend me that book actually, Nuclear War.
Yeah, that was. Oh my, yeah, and Jacobson. Annie Jacobson.
Annie Jacobson. Yeah.
Oh, couldn't put it down. Could not put it down. I read it in 2 days, 3 days. Terrifying. Absolutely terrifying.
And there is an audiobook version available, but it's fantastic.
I mean,
really quite scary, I guess.
Yeah, terrifying, yeah.
Terrifying. That's a bit more than scary. But that's not really what we mean. It's like, what's going to happen and how do you deal with it? So the thing that got me thinking about this was I did a video, I don't know, maybe a year ago now, and there was a massive storm, a storm that cut out power, services and all sorts. And I was just thinking, could I have done anything beforehand to mitigate what happened afterwards? Yeah. Now, as it happened, I'd had a generator, and it also happened that it was the same night that my mum had to go into hospital in an A&E.
Right.
So it combines all the kind of things we're going to talk about in one particular instance. And looking at it, if you didn't know what to do, you'd be really, really, really struggling on all those aspects of it.
Really flapping, yeah.
So it started, my mum had to urgently go to A&E. Now, normally you would ring 15. If you're in France and you need help, medical wise, ring 15. That's the number. You can also ring 112, which is the European number. But any mobile, English, American, regardless of where your phone is from, if you're actually physically in France and you call 15, it will go straight through to SAMU, which is the emergency medical call center. So normally you would ring them and find out what's going on. But the issue I had at the time, strangely, we were driving in a car and I was driving and my mum was in the passenger seat. So there's no way I'm going to spend the time doing all that nonsense.
No, you just go.
I know where the nearest A&E is. I'm going there.
Yeah.
And that's fine. And they will see you and it's no problem. So went to A&E, and then it was a cardiac incident, I guess we could say. But it happened to be right on the night of the biggest storm that we'd had for a long, long time. And we were
was that when your when some of your electrics got got fried. Your router box got fried, and a bunch of stuff like that.
That was previous to that. That was a lightning strike directly on my house. But that was previous to that. But so what happened was, so I'm driving along and this incident occurs. Now, it's not unheard of that those kind of incidents happen, and you've got to know what do you do? How can you deal with this? And luckily enough, I knew where the A&E was and that sort of stuff, so I drove straight there. Now, this is a bit of a bugbear for me because I did a video actually on if it worst came to the worst, how can you contact the emergency services if you don't speak French? And it's using the online 114 system. And you can actually go on there and use Google Translate. And yeah.
Didn't you get some flack for that video?
Oh, yeah, a lot.
Yeah.
But it's not unusual. It's not unusual because, oh, hello.
Thumbs up. Someone likes it.
It's not unusual. There was a lot that, and this is this is international. There are a lot of people that put procedure, policy, and that kind of, I don't know how to describe it, but that kind of stuff above saving lives. And I've had that in previous jobs.
Yeah, I was just going to say we had that conversation after a few beers at the Tiki Bar, didn't we? That's you know, that people will not see the situation in front of them and be blinded by the protocols that need to be followed, but not see the real human cost of what's in front of them.
Exactly. And sometimes it gets to the point where you're so desperate, you just need to
just do what you got to do.
You've got to do what you got to do to save lives, or I know that sounds terrible.
Not really, no.
You know what I mean? Like, do the best you can in the circumstance.
Yeah.
But it doesn't fit in with policy and procedure.
Yeah.
And I did get a lot of flack for that, but I still stand by it.
As long as it works. As long as it works.
It was the only option available to me to get the fastest response at the time to the person who needed it. And people die because they're stood waiting for reference numbers, clipboards, people with policies and procedures.
Yeah,
I understand why they're there, but when it all comes down to it, you've got to do what's needed in the time. Anyway, getting back to what I said.
Did you go driving?
Would we?
No, surely.
Never do that, do we? So driving along, suddenly you've got to know what to do and go to A&E. So you've got to find an A&E, and it's not A&E marked on the signposts now. It's but it is helpfully marked with a big red cross, and it's CHU normally.
Yeah.
And just head for there. And yes, okay. Right. So one of the things is you're supposed to ring 15, even if you're going to go to A&E.
Okay. Didn't know that.
Did you know that?
No, didn't know that. Yeah.
That's
all
true.
The blood got in the way.
Yeah. Sorry, I couldn't see the numbers on the keypad.
From the spurting blood. Sorry about that.
But I can see from minor things that they might divert you to another hospital that's less busy. You get better treatment. So I understand that. And I can see. So
certainly.
Advices.
Certainly, specialist care, they would divert you to a hospital with those specialist doctors and so on. But
there comes a point where you've just got to do what you got to do to save, lives. And a cardiac incident, it's got to be the closest place that can deal with it, and that's that. And you go in there as fast as you can.
Yeah, that's right.
And I must have done about, well, I can't really say on here, but
you made progress through the streets.
Yes, we got there quite quickly. Shall we say?
I've only really had two scenarios, other than digging lumps out of myself. I've only really had two scenarios. the first was when we was up in Normandy, or the Pays de la Loire to be more accurate. But yeah, when we was up there, it was on New Year's Eve actually. It was 10 o'clock New Year's Eve. All the lights went out.
It's always a Sunday or a bank holiday or something, yeah.
All the lights went out, everything, all the power went out. Of course, it's pitch black, isn't it? And so we'd only been in the house, or we'd only owned the house about, I don't know, about a month, I suppose. And so first thing, I went to check the breaker board. They was all still switched on. So I thought it must be a power cut in the whole area.
Oh, I love this story.
So
this is brilliant.
So I said to Jane, I'd already, you know, I'm a relatively prepared, like a resourceful sort of individual. But so you know, I'd already got candles and torches stashed away. So did all that, and I said to Jane, well, I'm just going to jump in the car. And fortunately, I hadn't had a drink, so I said I'm just going to jump in the car and drive around the area because our nearest neighbour was half a mile away. So and have a look, see if there's any other lights on. So there was a farm that way and a farm that way. So I went to the first farm, all the lights were off. Now, I didn't know whether that was because they'd just gone to bed with the farmers or, you know, they weren't in or whatever. So I thought, okay, I'll go back the other way. And the nearest neighbours, like I say, were about half a mile away, the other side of the field, they was in their 80s. So I thought they're bound to be in bed. So no lights on there. And then there was a couple that had a house on the other side of the elderly couple. Well, there was disco lights going on and people being sick in the flower beds and all that. So I thought, well, they've got power then. So I went home and said to Jane, yeah, you know, they've got power on, so there must be an issue here. And then I remembered that when we bought the house, the previous owners had told us that there was a junction box with a breaker on the opposite side of the drive within the grounds of the house.
Right.
And normally they've got a little seal on them, haven't they? They've got like a cream box with a lid and there's a seal. Well, there wasn't a seal on the box because it's obviously had been an issue in the past. So I opened the box and the breaker was down. So I put it back on, and sure enough, all the lights come back on, and yeah. So that was by about 11:15 at that time on New Year's Eve. So that was that. So the second scenario was that I had bought probably a fifth-hand generator, big old generator, weighs a ton.
Yeah, do you know? I remember that video. I literally remember you firing it up. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, because I was chopping wood, right? Chopping wood with me hydraulic log splitter, and failed to remember that some logs they really don't want to be split, and when they do, when they do eventually split, they complain about it and they shoot off at vast speed and smash everything that they contact. So one bit of log shot across the workshop and smashed into the control panel of the generator, and it broke the little ammeter. Is that how you say it? Ammeter. Yeah. And which I'm sure I didn't need, but it looked rubbish. So yeah. Anyway, so I brought that with me up here, down here to Chiron, and we had a power cut here probably 6 months ago, I suppose. Power cut. It's a much smaller community here. There's 6 houses in the hamlet, and you know, people are really nice. So I went and knocked on the door of the people opposite, and the guy so rung his doorbell. His dog went bananas, and he came out wearing a head torch. So I thought, okay, well that's pretty conclusive.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we had a little chat, and then I went back in. I said to Jane, yes, it's not just us, powers off. I'm going to get the generator out. So I wheeled the generator up from the garage, weighs a ton, and started it up. It's the loudest thing. You could probably hear it in Normandy, I would imagine. So I started this thing up, and plugged the fridge and freezer in. That was the most important here, because we'd just been shopping, so it was all filled up. Plugged the fridge and freezer in, and then went across to the neighbours, asked if they wanted a cup of tea or coffee.
Nice.
And they so made them a cup of coffee and took it over, and yeah.
Brilliant.
Actually, the like you were saying in one of your videos a while ago, you said I've got this to do, this to do, this to do, this to do. So the fuel tank won't hold fuel in the generator. It drips out. Now, I'm not sure whether it's dripping out at the bottom of the, like there's like a metal bowl under the carb. Yeah, so it's dripping off of that. Now I've got a feeling that it's the rubber pipe between the fuel tank and the top of the carb has perished, and it's just running over the. So I've got to sort that out. So that's not working at the moment. But I was in Brico, actually, Brico Marché, and you can buy a brand new one for like 250, 300 euros. So I was just thinking, you know what, shall I just get a new one? Or
so with power cuts, then let's go down that route.
Okay.
How often do you have them, and how long do they last for?
Yeah, since we've been here, we've probably had 4, and one was most of the day. That was the one that I got the generator off on, rather, and the rest are probably a couple of hours.
So with a power cut, then your freezer's probably going to last you, if it's full, it lasts longer, actually, surprisingly.
Yeah, as long as you don't open the door.
Yeah, don't open the door, and you could get away with 24 hours minimum, probably up to 36 if you didn't open the door. Depending on the ambient temperature, but
I've got a question for you, actually.
Go on.
And it just pops into my head that when I was looking at the generator, I was thinking, I must ask Andy that.
Go on.
So what's the difference between an ordinary generator and an inverter generator?
Right. Okay. So the difference is the quality of the output of the electric.
Yeah, because there's, for the inverter generator, which is much smaller, it's got a sine wave, SINE, sine wave sticker on it.
Yeah, so there was a lot. Basically, the output from a generator can vary. So the original ones were just an engine with a dynamo attached, and if the engine sped up or slowed down, the frequency or the voltage would change accordingly. But what the inverter generators do is they take the output and they put it into so the output's a lower voltage, and then they use electronics to make it 230 volts or whatever your output is, but they can do that.
So like an old-fashioned coil would have.
Yeah, they do. In fact, I actually did a video on this. Would you believe? I did a video on most things, but I bought a generator, a really expensive one, for next to nothing because someone had dropped it on scaffolding and it.
I remember,
pancaked on the floor.
That was a really interesting video. I love them.
And when the best thing about that video is when I'm thinking, I just can't get this engine to run, and my mum walks in with a. She can hear me in the garage, obviously having a bit of a hard time, and she comes in with the beer, and she comes in with the beer and goes, wonder if it's the timing or something along those lines.
It was it was the
Was
piston rings, wasn't it?
Oh, that's it. Yeah, she goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably the
Because of the smoke, wasn't it?
And I was like, oh yeah, thanks a lot. Thanks, Mom.
Thanks, Mum.
Yeah, cheers. Anyway, so
engineering genius, you.
Yeah, so embarrassing, but really good fun. So basically, it takes the out because you're taking an engine runs and it just turns a crankshaft in a circular motion, and it spins a magnet inside a coil, like a motor. But if the engine speeds up, slows down, then obviously that what comes out is going to change. It's not always going to be the same. So what an inverter generator does is takes a lower voltage, but then puts it through capacitors and all sorts of stuff until you get a permanently good signal out the end.
Is that why they're a bit smaller, the inverter generators, because they don't have to make that initial voltage?
They're not particularly smaller, so they're just more compact, I guess.
Compact,
yeah. They're not. You've got a bigger tank on yours because, for example, the Honda generators, the suitcase ones, the little small ones like I've got. They have a setting where it's not fully on all the time, so it adjusts the engine speed to cope with whatever load you put on it. And they're really, really good. But the one you've got is just on. When it's on, it's on. So you need a bigger tank to power whatever you've got because it's running full speed at correct rotation to produce that voltage all the time. So you need a bigger frame, you need a bigger engine, you need a bigger tank. But the smaller inverter generators, they generally just cope with whatever's drawn from them at the front. So if you put a larger load on, the engine speeds up and supplies it. So they don't need a bigger fuel tank because they're really economical. So everything becomes a bit smaller.
So following what we've just been talking about, for your average person living in rural France, do you think a generator is an outlay that should be considered?
The difficulty with a generator is you would want a generator to power a freezer and a fridge. I mean, that's your minimum. The problem with a freezer and a fridge is when they start up, the current or the power they take instantaneously is massive.
Yeah.
So you need a generator big enough to cope with that surge current. And after that, it will be really small, like a couple of 100 watts or something. But they do exist now, these plug-in battery packs.
Oh, I know. Yeah. EcoFlow is the big one in the market.
Jackery, EcoFlow, those kind of things. They're not generators, but they are storage devices. So you can charge them up when you have electricity, keep them charged, and then when you don't, then you can use those. They're pretty good. I must
so do you
admit,
think comparatively they're the better bet, even though they're actually really expensive, aren't they, to buy?
I don't think they're the better bet, but it depends on your situation. So for me, it's no good. They're too expensive, and I can do the same thing for a lot cheaper. But for someone who doesn't really have any experience in that side of things, they are pretty good because they're easy to use, like iPads or iPhones or whatever. They're just really user friendly.
Yeah, they're intuitive to use, aren't they?
And also they're quiet and silent as well.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, there is that. There's the mild one. When you sounds like a 1920s traction engine.
There is one big downside to them, and that is, what if it's more than the longevity of the battery pack you've got?
Yeah, of course.
By that I mean, if you look at my video on the storm that night, we had a generator I just rebuilt, and if that had been a battery pack, I would have drained the power from the batteries, and that would have been that. There's no way of recharging that.
Yeah.
However, there is always a way of putting more petrol in a generator.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, as long as you've got enough fuel, you can run it forever, really.
And it's probably 20% of the cost. So
Yeah.
your generator will do exactly what the EcoFlow will do. The only difference is you've got to keep putting petrol in the top.
Yeah.
And it's louder.
Yeah. So speaking of louder, I was doing a job on Monday, I think it was, and it was basically clearing down the side of a barn.
Seen it.
So lovely old couple. The old fella had not been well, and you know, it all just got away from him. And there was ivy, like the stalks of the
Wow.
roots of the ivy were like that, and it was all going up the side of the barn onto the roof. I had a look on the roof. I said, "Look, it's all going underneath the pantiles." I said, "If I start moving it about, your roof's going to come off." I said, "But what I can do is cut a 30 centimeter strip all the way down, and then that'll all die." And,
Yeah.
you know, so that will just stop it getting any worse, and it will die. So that's what I did anyway. So part of the job was to clear the floor away. So that was all covered in junk, and so I found this. Of course, I couldn't see what was there because it was thick ivy and weeds like 5 foot tall. So pulled it all out, cut it all down, and there was no wheelbarrow upside down.
Right.
And the old boy said, "Oh, underneath the wheelbarrow, there's an old whacker plate."
Right.
Yeah. So for those who don't know, a whacker plate is a petrol-driven engine that turns an elliptical weight inside a cylinder, which then creates a vibration to push down on a long flat plate, which you can use to smooth out sand or gravel or any aggregate. Fairly accurate description?
Yeah, pretty good, yeah.
Yeah. So I said, he said, "We can have it if you want. I don't want it anymore."
Do
So,
I?
and he said, so yeah. So I said to him, "Well, does it work? Do you know?" He said, "Well, it was working when I put it away." I said, "Well, when was that?" He said, 15 years ago. So anyway, so I've got it anyway. I got it in the workshop, and obviously it wouldn't start. Checked the oil, checked everything. But the spark plug, I took the spark plug out, obviously, and it was all coked up. But there's, you know, on the end of, or on the top of a spark plug, you normally got like a screw in, or a screw on top of a spark plug.
Yeah.
Yeah,
The metal
yeah.
one. Yeah.
The actual screw in nub wasn't there; it was just the thread.
Ah.
So I got a feeling that that wasn't making a proper contact. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to invest in a spark plug, and I took the fuel tank off and cleaned it all out. Had a bit of sludge and stuff in it. So cleaned that all out, and
It's funny you mentioned that because this does come under the banner of being prepared. So what I mean by that is look after your tools, petrol driven ones.
yeah,
So especially if you have a generator. So the biggest mistake people make is, right, oh, there's a power cut, quick, got a generator, stick some fuel in it, turn it on. It could be a hedge cutter, it could be a chainsaw, it doesn't matter what, any petrol driven thing. And then they just turn it off and then walk away and then try and use it the next time they use it. But it's just not going to work because I don't know if you know, but the fuel at the pumps, there's 95 and 98 for unleaded petrol. The 95 is E10. E10 means 10% ethanol. The 98 has zero ethanol in.
Yeah.
So what ethanol does in fuel is it takes in the moisture, uses the moisture in the air, and ends up solidifying, and you end up with like a sticky, sticky substance.
I know, yeah.
Blocks the carburetors or injectors. and that sort of thing. So my top tip really is, if you've got any petrol driven machinery, including a generator, is either empty the petrol or turn off the fuel, run it until it runs out of fuel, and then store it like that.
Yeah.
Because there's no fuel in there to go bad. And that's the biggest cause of. So if you have like a holiday home with a lawnmower or chainsaws or even generators, that kind of stuff, wood chippers, anything that's petrol related, before you go away and leave it for the season, take the fuel out or turn the fuel off and run it until it runs out of fuel.
Yeah.
And then it'll 95% will start next time. If you run it and then just turn the key off, walk away and go away for 6 months, when you come back, all that ethanol in the fuel has gone manky.
Yeah.
The alternative, well, not the alternative, but the other idea is to use the 98.
I always use 98 for everything. All of the it's just better, isn't it?
It is. Some engines can't run on it, but yeah, 98 is probably better because it doesn't have the ethanol. Although they have started putting it in, so you've got to watch out if there's an E and then a 5 or a 10. It's got ethanol in, and that's what's going to clog up your machine. So always run it out of fuel before you go away or for a long period of time, and that goes with generators or chainsaws, lawnmowers, whatever. So always look after, because you never know when you're going to need it.
Yeah. So just dragging it back to preparation and prepping. So prepping as the sort, because we were talking about the definition at the beginning. So prepping as a wide or preparation as a wide range, like we said, ranging right from keeping a torch with fresh batteries up to having an underground shelter. So I think how that relates to the French lifestyle, and we was talking before we started recording, and that can relate to anything from the bank holiday. There's so many bank holidays. It's actually a bank holiday today, 15th of August, Ascension Day. So having a bank holiday, so hardly anything's open. Although my local super U was open 9 till 12 today, but heresy.
Yeah,
exactly. But so keeping a loaf of bread in the freezer, you know.
I think you're right, and I think I was here. I was in France during the pandemic.
Right.
So it was weird watching. For me here, where I am, I live in Brittany, and the local Super U, which is our local supermarket, during the lockdowns, never really ran out of anything. But they did have a situation where you had to do your order online, go and pick it up, and that's fine. There was no real shortages. I think maybe bits and bobs, but nothing major. But the long life stuff, you could probably keep, if you've got a spare cupboard, you could have probably kept most of the stuff that I needed.
Certainly,
anyway.
when we lived back in Dagenham, which is just outside London, I'd always been interested in the whole prepping thing, and I'd always kept a few bits and pieces here and there, some water and so on. But I think for a lot of people, the whole pandemic brought to the front of their mind, should things go seriously wrong, I'm not prepared.
Yeah.
And so you had the I don't know why, I don't know whether this was just a UK thing, but there was a massive run on toilet rolls, wasn't there? What was all that about?
Yeah.
Toilet rolls and pasta.
Well,
you ain't all that
pasta,
you ain't going to need a toilet roll.
Everybody thinks pasta's which it is, a long life food. But yeah, anyway. And then toilet rolls well, there's plenty of countries in the world where they don't even have toilet rolls,
No,
and they
no.
they
They
manage.
obviously haven't been to rural India, have they?
But yeah, I mean, it is a first world thing, I guess. But yeah, I know what you mean. It's very quick. Things become scarce very quickly. And also the price of fuel, like for cars, was massively inflated, and
I
it's only
actually,
just started to come down now, to be
I
honest.
actually, I actually think the certainly, from what I've seen, I think the war in Ukraine had a bigger impact than certainly in terms of certain foods, for foodstuffs, had a bigger impact than the pandemic, because in the early days of the Ukraine war, there was a massive shortage of cooking oil and sunflower oil.
Yeah,
And so wherever you went, there was fields and fields and fields of sunflowers. And yeah, just there's always different things that happen across the world that have an impact on your life,
yeah, I see what you're saying. So something can happen that is completely not in your control. The war in Ukraine, the pandemic, I mean, they're all similar in the respect that they affect your life and you've got no control over them. So what do you do? I mean, yeah, I understand. So one of the things I looked at was the sustainability of using solar panels and batteries and stuff to provide your own electricity, not just to keep your bills down, but for those circumstances where fuel was so ridiculously expensive because of external influences, or for example that there is a I don't know, a natural disaster or a problem like that. Is it possible? And that's currently what I'm doing. If you follow my videos, not many people do.
Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you do that?
Exactly. So you can now get systems where you use solar panels, and even on just a cloudy day, it doesn't even have to be sunny, you can store enough energy to provide the power for your house for fridge freezers we already mentioned, TVs and lights and that kind of thing.
I think
that exists.
I think it's a mindset as well. So the initial reaction of people to solar panels and home generation of electricity and storage of electricity is, how much is the initial outlay, and how long will it take for me to make that back on the non or low payment of electricity bills? And I think that's the wrong mindset. What you should be thinking is, should they call it SHTF, don't they?
Oh yeah. But that's just an acronym for anything, any problems which result in there being a shortage of whatever substance, whether electricity, water, or food. Whatever.
Yeah.
I know what you're saying. Yeah, that people look at it in that way. But with me, the way it goes is, I had a vehicle I was using, which is a diesel, and the fuel costs were quite high, just generally because I'm out every day, driving around every day, so I've got to pay for it. But as soon as I've now swapped to an electric car, it's pretty almost inconsequential,
negligible.
So you've got to factor in that aspect. So it's not just, well, will I make that back off the solar, but I'm also getting that amount of mileage per month for free. So when you add that in, it's not just your home consumption, but your vehicle consumption as well. So it works works together quite well.
Yeah. But in terms of prepping, so in your opinion, what would you say is the minimum that people should have around them to be prepared?
Say that again.
So, in your opinion, what is the minimum that people should have around them in terms of being prepared?
Right. So it depends where you live, and it depends what you do and how important things are for you. But I would minimum have like one of these. If your budget's, I wouldn't say tight, but if you just want to look at investing, like a small, about this big inverter battery box generator, like the Jackeries or the EcoFlows and that kind of thing. So that maintains the fact that you can charge your mobiles, because most mobile base stations that you communicate with will have generator capability for up to 48 hours. But if your phone's flat, then you can't use it and you can't talk to people. So something like that. If you want to go one step up, I would definitely say a generator of some sort, even if it's a cheaper one, but you know it'll run your fridge and freezer, because you can lose an awful lot of money by melting your freezer.
Yeah.
And if you don't, you probably end up sick if you don't keep it frozen.
That's right. Yeah.
And lights don't take a lot of power, so you could run the lights at the same time as that. That's the minimum for the electrical side of things. For water, I would definitely keep, like at least 6 or 12 bottles of 2 liters of water just for drinking, because you never know. There's been times here, I mean, I'm on the edge of a village, and they will say your water's going to be out for 3 hours while we connect someone down the street or whatever. And you think, oh, that's all right. But then in those 3 hours, you're like, oh, I need to flush the loo, or I need to drink some water or whatever. So have some water standby, and also food, not just frozen, but just stuff you can keep for long, canned stuff.
Yeah.
And the thing about that is the French are the best at that.
They are, yeah. There's the fresh vegetable section is very, very seasonal and very local in the supermarkets, isn't it? You go down the Tyndall, you can get any type of vegetable you want.
Yeah. And I don't know if I sent you a French. Did I say I sent you a French ration?
You did, yeah.
Army ration pack.
I made a video of it, didn't I?
You did, yeah. And the thing about that is nearly everything inside that ration pack is commercially available.
Yeah.
And the idea behind that was that when soldiers are out doing whatever they're doing on the other side of the world, it's like reminiscence of
taste of home,
of home. So it's stuff you could buy in the supermarket, so you can get that and it lasts for a long time. So like you can get confit de canard in a tin, which is lovely, beautiful.
Canard pommes, yeah, that's really nice.
Oh, it's lovely. It's really nice stuff. So have some cans around, some spare water, and we're not talking about the end of days, but just like the video I did on the storm, the power was out. We did another video where there was another storm and it took out, showed you Enedis coming out and fixing the lines and that sort of stuff. It does happen, especially the further out you are, the more likely it is to happen.
Yeah.
So, I would definitely. That's the minimum I would suggest.
Yeah.
Also, first aid.
Yeah, of course.
First aid training is a must as far as I'm concerned.
I agree, yeah.
Really, really is. Not a lot of people bother with it.
Top tip. Don't buy your stereo strips from Tesco's.
No.
Because they're rubbish.
It was funny, though. If that was life-threatening, I wouldn't be happy, but no. Yeah, a first aid kit and the knowledge on how to use it. And also, there's just like French-specific stuff. In most villages, you've got a defibrillator.
Yes. Normally outside the pharmacy, isn't it?
Yeah, or here it's actually opposite the cafe.
Okay.
In the village centre. But find out what make it is, and just read the instructions online on how to use it, because it's all going to be in French.
Yeah.
I mean, they are easy to use, but if you've never done it before,
Yeah.
and you're going to need to want to know how to do that.
Yeah. I mean,
for sure.
In my previous job, we had defibs in the cars, and they're pretty much idiot proof. So I was in trouble. But yeah, no, all joking aside, they're pretty much idiot proof. But as you say, the ones here are going to be in French.
Yeah.
It's a really good point, actually. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah, go and have a look at the one nearest to you, where it is and what make it is.
Yeah.
Download or look at the instructions, because you'll only get one chance at that.
Yeah, that's it.
And they do save a lot of lives.
Yeah. Yeah, I've got a trauma kit that I keep in the car. I'm sure, like yourself, I received training to quite a high level with that, and I've got saline in there, and I've got I can put a drip in if need be, and I've got tourniquets and Israeli bandages. Israeli bandages are brilliant.
So yeah, super. But they have a shelf life, of course, and all this stuff has a shelf life. The fuel in the generators, the food in the cans, the water in the bottles. So everything's got to be rotated and used eventually.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it just takes a bit of thinking about, doesn't it? I was listening to an audio book, actually, because this sort of stuff fascinates me, and obviously fictional, but it was about a Chinese attack on the US.
Right.
So
hold on, was there a Red Dawn?
No,
Dawn.
No, this was
no, that was North Korea, maybe.
It was maybe
Patrick Swayze in the 80s. Do you remember that one?
Yeah, I do remember that.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah. So anyway, so this was set around the US, and so there was no bombs raining down, nothing like that. All that the Chinese did, fictionally, obviously, allegedly, all that they did was mess with the food transport logistics.
Okay.
Yeah. So all they did was destroy the computer logistics for the for the deliveries of food to supermarkets, basically. So there was all this food in the supermarket. Sorry, there's all this food in the distribution centers, but they didn't have a system that should all the computers go down, how to do it.
And by the time they worked something out, it was pretty much too late.
So within 3 days, all the food was gone.
Yeah.
In the supermarkets, and that's it doesn't take long. It doesn't take long, and they had destroyed the system to the point where it was unrepairable.
All right.
So there was no way to get the food to the to the supermarkets.
That's really interesting. I'm gonna have to find out what that book is. I'm gonna read that one.
It's really good. Yeah, I'll find it. And
do you know? We'll try and put a link in the description. There's actually on YouTube. There's a Channel 4 film called Blackout. It was made in 2013.
Right.
And it's pretty much what would happen in the UK if the power was turned off for any length of time.
Yeah.
And it's actually done from the point of a YouTuber.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It's really interesting. So he's like in the program, he's like he's semi-prepared, so he's got a generator, camping stove, a barbecue, and stuff like that. But really quickly, his neighbours get wind of it, and it's all. I can't really give too much away.
No,
but it's all about what happens from there, and how, like you said, the logistics stop because there's no electricity. The water stops because there's no electricity.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting. But if anyone watching this, and if you got this far, well done. Then it's well worth a watch, and it's free to watch, and it's on YouTube. So we may well come back to this with something more advanced, I think. But I've just completed a video. Actually, I've got 3 generators.
Of course,
Not for, of course, I have. But for different things. So one of my videos I did a long time ago was a Honda 2000 watt generator that I used because in France the building sites don't have electricity when they're early on. So that was running all the work stuff for my brother. I've got the bigger one that I bought for small amounts of money just as a project to do up, and then I've got a really small Honda 1 kilowatt one, which is just used for lighting or charging devices. So I've just done a video where I've serviced them all, cleaned them all up, and checked they all work.
Yeah.
But on an aside, the Honda generators are brilliant because you can connect them all together.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, so you can have like a 2000 watt one and a 3000 watt and plug them all together, and you can have 5000. So it's quite a good system.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Brilliant. So, just thinking about what you said earlier about the minimum that you need.
Yeah, what would you reckon?
First off is water. Enough water. I'm not sure of your minimum requirements for the day, but I think it's a lot more than you would think it would be.
Especially depending on the heat as well.
Of course, yeah. On the ambient conditions, yeah. Your shelter, obviously, just in some kind of natural disaster. You can do a lot with a tarpaulin.
Do you know what? It's funny you mentioned that. I walked into my shed and I knew we were doing this video, and I looked at it and I went, I've got to mention that. Everybody needs a tarpaulin.
Yeah. And I mean, with the tarpaulin, they're called bashes here, aren't they? So
yeah.
So which I think is in the that's what they're called in the army, aren't they? Bashes.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, let's ask Robbie. You know. Yeah, you tend to get what you pay for, basically. So you can buy a cheap one, but it lasts 5 minutes.
So you're thinking like a personal tent kind of thing? When I always look.
No, not necessarily. So I don't know. Say something happens to your roof, something big enough just to go over the roof, just as temporary, just to stop it, any weather destroying the rest of your house. Just having that available and a plan to be able to fit it. And should something really terrible happen, you've got I remember first time that Jane and I went to India, and we was driving from the airport to the hotel and seeing families by the side of the road living under a plastic sheet.
Yeah.
It's a real culture shock, really surprised us, and the level of poverty there. But as I say, you can do a lot with a waterproof.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right. I was thinking it like there's so many uses. The blue sort of tarpaulins that you can get for big ones. I've got a really big one in the shed, and it's coming so handy just for on the off chance. I mean, talk about being prepared. It doesn't have to be for a disaster or anything. It can be just simply, I don't know, like your window gets put in on your car or whatever.
There you go. Yeah. You just fling a tarpaulin over it, make it waterproof. Yeah.
Weight it down at the corners, and that's it. You can think about it overnight. There's no problem. I mean, or you could. There's so many different uses for it, and I think that would probably be one of my number one. Like not expensive, but really usable, and you probably use it quite a lot. Is a decent tarpaulin and some bungee straps for it as well.
Yeah.
Like you say, if you have a shed or a house, the roofs. Like, that reminds me actually, your video of the hailstones that completely mullered your car and your
did, yeah. I mean,
guttering and stuff
we got
like
away
that.
relatively lightly. Friends of ours that I think I showed you on one of the videos, Kath and Pete. You know, their house or their houses. You know, they got a huge great house and a big barn and sheets and so on. That was almost 2 years ago, and actually, I think it's actually 2 years ago now.
Yeah.
And the roofs were destroyed,
Yeah.
and they've only just now, in the past few months, had the new roofs put on all of the outbuildings and the main property.
Yeah. So having a tarpaulin to just throw over and protect everything inside right at the beginning just buys you time.
Yeah.
But it can be used for so many other things as well. It's just I definitely I've got a big one, and well, apparently I've got a big tarpaulin anyway, and I can chuck it over the roof and whatever, and it stops any ingress of water from
I'm gonna have to
whatever.
put that.
The inside's not gonna.
I'm gonna have to put that Kenneth Williams thing in there.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good one actually, the tarpaulin.
Yeah, and with some lights, so candles and torches ideally, because candles are all right until you set fire to your house.
Yeah. I lived next door to someone who did that. They liked candles so much, and then they fell asleep, and it just set fire to the whole house.
Yeah, well done, good job.
What I was going to say is, you're quite lucky because your heating system is gas and wood.
Yeah.
So, but the only problem is neither of them will work if you haven't got electricity.
No, that's right. That's right. Yeah, because the pump won't work on both on the log burner. Yeah. No, you're right. I hadn't thought of that.
So a little, going back to it, like one of these little battery packs would be able to see you through that situation where you could still put wood in the fire and it would get circulated around the house. If there was a power cut, not only would you not get heat, but you'd then be stuck with a fire heating water that's not circulating, which is not the best.
No.
And your boiler just wouldn't work anyway.
No.
And it's quite interesting because in England, a lot of combi boilers or system boilers in England need the electric to work anyway, and the gas is all underground. So even if you've got a gas boiler, if the power's out, you can't use it.
That's it. Yeah, that's it.
So a lot of the time, I've done this a few times now, is you can change the fuse spur on your boiler to a plug.
Yeah,
and
so
it's
you can just
actually
plug
written
it
in
in.
the manual.
Basically.
You can do that as long as it's appropriately fused, and then if there's a power cut, you can just take that out, plug it into your little battery box, and your gas central heating will work fine until your battery box runs out.
I think the pump that's in the chimney breast, I think that is plugged in.
Yeah, under your sink. Yeah.
Yeah. Of course it is. Yeah. Yeah.
Both
So that'll just plug. Yeah, of course. Yeah. So that'll just plug into a generator or an extension outside to the generator. Yeah. I hadn't thought of that.
Yeah. And you could do French ear trumpet as well. So
I could do that. Yeah, could do that.
Yeah.
So,
I don't know if the fibre will be working, but yeah.
I don't know. I guess we'll find out.
Well, that was quite an interesting episode, I think.
Yeah, I didn't think we was going to go down the avenues that we did, but it was interesting actually.
Yeah, I think there's more to explore on later
much
episodes, to be honest.
Yeah.
Definitely. Before we finish, I think I just want to mention I got an email, literally an email, from somebody who's got some critique, shall we say, of our previous episode on healthcare. And that's quite right, because we do say, and this one is no different, that it's our experiences only. It's only entertainment. And please check your own sources and look at your own information before you do anything. Do not do it off the back of two of us rambling on. But I just want to just want to go through we got an email, and I just want to go through 1 or 2 points. Is that most of what we said was correct reading through it, except the best thing to do is always ring 15 first before going to any A&E if possible, and also that we mentioned that you weren't possible to give blood donations in France if you were born between or were living in England in between certain times. That is true. Nothing's changed there, but it's not just France, it's also USA and Australia that do the same thing. And France will actually accept blood donations, but just for scientific research purposes. So, yeah, very interesting. And we were going
Charlie's just woken up.
Yeah, we're going to contact the person who sent the email and see if they would like to come on, because they seem quite knowledgeable. It'd be a very interesting.
Yeah, no, that'd be really interesting. Yeah.
Yeah, because we're always open to criticism or feedback, because this is just entertainment, really.
Yeah.
If I'm honest. Okay, I guess that'll do for us for this episode.
Okay, so thank you so much for watching, everyone. And if, as Andy said earlier, if you've made it this far, well done you. So if you'd like to give the video a thumbs up, that'd be brilliant. Maybe share it on your socials, on your social media. Press the notification bell so that you know when there's new content. And maybe think about subscribing if you're not subscribed already. And all that leaves to say is it's goodbye from me.
And it's goodbye from him.
Goodbye.